Hi, I'm Tamara, and today we are going to make some fun wrapping paper and acrylic dipped bows. By now you must have received a package in the mail or through our shows or on our website. And we will open the package in a few minutes and get started. First I'm going to show you the design we're going to work on, and it's our purple monsters. Purple monsters on yellow paper. It's a fun pattern, easy to create. So as you can see, you can't really make any mistakes, and you will be able to see the difference in how you can do it. You could make the larger monsters or smaller monsters depending on how you feel after you've tried the squeeze bottle and some of the techniques that you'll learn today just on using paint. So I'll show you how to make the bows at the end of the video. Right now we'll just open up our package and get started. So a few things you might need before we start is, if you're at your dining room table, you might want to cover it with some newspaper to protect it. Tape down the newspaper, whatever makes you feel comfortable. You'll also need some paper towel, a little pair of scissors, and tape, and water. So we'll start out by opening our package and seeing what we have inside. So in your box, you just grab a hold here where the paper ends. And simply slide it out, it'll come out pretty good. So inside the package, you'll find paper. In this case, it's our nice bright yellow paper. You'll find your paint package. This is just a bag for when you're done. You can roll them up and store them in here, your paper, until you decide to wrap your special gift. You'll find two little rolls of paper. These are going to be used for the bows later. We'll do that at the end. Our acrylic dipped bows. Inside you'll also find sheets of paper. The smaller ones are just for practicing on. If you want to, check out the squeeze bottle, I'll show you that later. The other one has a shiny coating on it, and that is going to be what we use for a palette to put our paints on. So then inside here, you will find the other necessary supplies. Okay, so this will be your cup for water. You will need to have that to keep your brush wet and to clean up anything you might need. Another thing to watch out for is if you're drinking coffee or anything with it, make sure you don't dip your brush in your coffee. So we have a container of purple paint. This will make the bodies of the monsters. We have a sponge, an artist sponge, natural. This will help make the texture for the monster's body. We have a brush, paintbrush we'll use to do the eyes and the mouth. You'll find two pieces of wire rolled up together. This will be used for the bows later, so you could set that aside. This is just a stir stick for your purple paint. After we shake it up and stir it, it'll be ready to go. We have white and black containers, little containers of paint for the eyes, and our handy dandy blue for the legs and arms. in a squirt bottle, a little squeeze bottle. Okay. So you can kind of just set aside your little paper here and keep one for practice, you know, handy, so you can just pull it in and try. I'll show you as we go. Okay. So your paint cup is taped closed so it doesn't spill. You can usually just peel off at the top, peel it down, you know, kind of scrape that off. Or use your handy dandy scissors. Why am I saying handy dandy? There we go. Ow. Okay. So we're going to shake up our paint a little bit, make sure it's mixed real good. I'll be working upside down so that you can see how the image is done from your perspective. Okay. Okay, here we go. So we're going to just start making equally spaced round sponge circles with the paint. So you can see over here. Kind of dab, dip and dab. I try to leave the paint a little heavier in the center, but then you can get that fun ununiform edge. So I'm going to, from the middle here, pick a spot to start my pattern, and then I want to choose where the center of this round circle is going to be, and I'm going to start here. So each time you can start in the center and kind of work your way out to give the same approximate size. Doesn't have to be perfect. Once again, dip in a little paint, kind of measure with your eyes just visually, because nothing, I mean, you can't go wrong with a fun monster wrapping paper, right? So we're going to just go about the same size over and over till you run out of paper. And you can take your paper down if you want to keep it from moving, but later on you might find you want to move the paper to reach certain areas. So you can put your fingers here and just kind of hold it down and dab the same. So we're just going in a line. Later we may add to the... Okay, so now I'm going to go in between these two and come out a little ways and start again. You just have fun dabbing little bits of paint on. I'm going to go in the middle here. Just dab another monster head. In the middle here. And out to the edge here. Okay, because I did do this mess up, I'm going to just make another one a little closer. In the big scheme of things, it won't matter. You can picture this, you know, on a wrapping up a gift. The pattern doesn't have to be perfect. So now I'm going to pretend I have another circle up here and go in the middle in line with this one. Roughly the same distance, like here to here. So I'll start in the middle and I'll stay in line with this guy. And this is where I'm gonna kind of make the pattern go off the edge. I do it this way. Okay, so you just keep repeating till you've filled the whole page with about the same size. The nice part is you can come back and add if you want 2 little shapes. depending on, I want to say how OCD I am, but so we'll just keep going. So for now, I'm not going to worry about doing the edge piece, you know, the edge parts like this right yet. Sometimes it's easier to wait till you're done. So you're trying to keep them in a little bit of a straight line. They don't have to be perfect once again. If you start drifting, you'll find that you can offset and make it look right anyway, just by taking the other one a little closer. So I'm going to try to stay in line once again with this guy. Come about the same distance apart. So you want to start watching that you don't start making your circles way bigger or way smaller than what you started with. So you keep coming back to your reference point to help keep them about the same size, so you have a nice pattern in the end. And you can always add more to the circles. If you look at the pattern after we're done with this part, we'll stand back and look at it. And if you see one that looks really small, you can add a little more around, right on top of what you've already got. So I'm kind of rolling the sponge a little to leave it thicker in some spots, gives it a little more character. Just kind of dabbing all around. Find the harder you push on the sponge gives you a little more different texture, so you kind of play around with that. Jim, can you move these papers for me?
Your lid's gonna trip right now.
Thank you. Watch for drippy lids. That's another thing you can use your palette paper for, just setting your paint on that so you don't have it drip off. I'm going to go ahead and solve that problem by just kind of putting the paint back in the cup. You might want to use your paper towel. I obviously use this. Okay. So I'm kind of checking to see that I'm somewhat in line. By the time you add the legs and the arms, any spatial differences you have won't be noticeable, which is what makes it kind of cool and fun. No worries. Going back and just filling in big gaping yellow spots, and the reason you let it go off the edge is so your pattern just continues throughout. This is where you might want to use your paper towel to wipe under the edge of your paper so it doesn't stick. Okay, so we're getting closer to the edge. Obviously near the edge you have to start holding the paper down a little more. You can go as fast or slow as you want. Just kind of enjoy it. I started getting a little closer, but you'll see once you add the arms and the legs, it will still end up being a nice pattern. Here and only make part of a monster head. Don't think you have to fit the whole monster head on. It gives the pattern uniformity all the way through the end. Sometimes the little monsters hanging off the edge end up being the cutest. So now I'm just going to set my sponge here for half a second while I either use my paper towel or my sleeve. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of step back with my sponge, get a little bit of paint on it, not much, because you don't want it dripping on your pattern. And I'm going to see where I might want to add some, just to have the pattern go off the page right. So I'm going to kind of come along here and make just the top of the head of the monster going off the edge. Okay, that's good enough because that fills that there. See how you don't have to do it at every spot. Just wherever you see extra yellow along the edges, you'll just kind of add part of a pattern here. Okay, so at this point, I would recommend just leaving your sponge there for a second and taking one of your paper towels and just kind of making sure you get the wet paint off underneath so your paper doesn't stick to it later. I'll have to step out and get this edge over here. Okay. So now is the time you can stand back and look and see if you have any weird shapes you don't like. One might be really small compared to another, and just come back and play with it, have a little fun. Maybe you want them a little rough around the edges. So you just have fun and play with it a little. Also, if you see that the center one a little more too transparent that you can see the yellow like really solid, you might want to just dab a little more in. But once again, even that won't matter by the time you put the eyes on. And a little smile. All right, at this point, the most important thing to remember is to get your sponge in the water so the acrylic paint doesn't dry up on it. You can try to kind of squeeze some of the paint out so you have lots of extra. Have enough paint for all the paper. Okay, we're going to close the purple for now. Clean up our hands and put the purple sponge in the water. Okay, I'm going to kind of squeeze it to make sure it's totally wet so you don't get any dried on crunchy acrylic paint. I'll use this time to dip my hands in the water and kind of clean them up a little too. Okay. At this point, you can choose to wait until this paint is dry. Then you don't have to worry about running your hand along and smearing your pattern all the way across. For these purposes, I'm going to continue on. So if you do see me smear through a spot, you'll understand why we would maybe let this dry first. So, the next part we do, I got my tape stuck to me. So I do have another cup of water here that I want to keep clean. One will be for putting our paint items in. So now we want to start with the eyes. So we're going to open our little white cup of paint, and I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my palette. Just want to make sure I don't stick the paper in that. Okay, so now I am going to take a little dab of this white paint out, kind of with the brush, just kind of scoop a little pile, roll your brush to get it off of your brush. And then I'm going to rinse my brush good, making sure the bristles are wet. And now I can use a little bit of water on the end of my brush to just thin this out a little bit. Kind of going to make it a little almost drippy. So I'm going to start with just a little bit like this, then you'll know how much you want to pull out of the little cup. In the meantime, make sure you cover your lid so that you don't get a dry skin of acrylic over the paints. Okay, so now I'm going to start making the monsters all face the same direction. And they will be facing towards you. So normally you will start kind of at the top and work your way down so you don't put your hand in wet paint or your arm or whatever. Once again, normally these would be dry if you go ahead and choose to wait. So for now, we're going to make little white dots on all of them, and we're going to keep it a little bit to the top. This will be the top of the head, right? Top of the monster's head. You can also do little commas, and this is where you can practice on your paper sheet or your palette, and you can do little commas like this, keeping them about that far apart to give them a little more. This guy's only going to get one eye. You can give them different looks in the eyes, and I'll do a few like this too. I'll do a row every other row. So for now, we're just putting the dots in this row, these first two rows, and actually some of these will get one and some will get two dots for the eyes because they're going off the paper. So I'm just picking it up with the paintbrush and laying it down. Okay, so there. As I get a little bit of paint on the brush, you'll notice that I set it down and I kind of roll it to get it off the brush smoothly, easily, and in one spot. So now I'm going to make the next two rows with the little comma eyes. Just gives them a little. Once again, I'm going to roll the brush a little. You want to keep these a little bit apart, like a finger width apart, so when you add the black dots for the eyes, they don't blend together, they don't run together. So we're just going to make little commas, little shapes, however they come out. Go ahead and snag up that paint. It's okay to let some of the purple show through. comfortable with the brush, you'll see all the different things you can do with it. It's okay if there's a little purple in here. If it ever gets to be too much purple, you can always rinse your brush. And once again, that paper towel is handy to dry your brush off on. But in this case, we'll get a little more paint out. If you go slower, you may want to start a new spot on your palette to not pick up dried up parts. But depending on how fast you feel comfortable going with this, you can. Okay, so I was going to finish the second row with more of a comma shape or a longer. The nice part is everyone should be different because they're all different individual monsters. So they'll all have different expressions. I'm going to put him some eyes like that. This little guy will have some eyes looking this way. Okay, now I'm going to go back to just making the dots for 2 rows. And if you, as you can see, the acrylic's starting to stand up. That's where you may want to dip in the water and just thin it out a little bit. It's not the end of the world if it does stand up, but just makes it a little easier to get off the brush. See how I keep rolling it to keep the paint off the ferrule? This is the ferrule, the metal part. It's the ferrule of the brush. Okay, so this will be my second row of round eyes. I'm also using my pinky to hold my finger up so I have more control over the brush. That's kind of a handy tip to know when you're learning to paint. Okay, I'm gonna give this guy some dots too. So, here we go with a little more paint. And I'm gonna go ahead and thin it out. I'm gonna get as much as I think I'll need. So you can see we didn't use too much. We'll have more for other paper. The other paper in the box. Okay. Roll your paintbrush. Mix it up, get the water from the edge. And then I kind of bring all the paint together in a pile so it doesn't dry out. Okay, now we're going to go back to our little comma eyes. Using my pinky to hold my brush up. Just kind of placing in a couple little commas. So what you will notice is how hard you push down on the brush matters also. I'm barely touching the surface. I'm not pushing all the bristles down hard on the surface, just kind of letting the paint come off. Because it's a soft brush, you don't want to push too hard. Okay, we're gonna make his come here because he's looking this way. Okay, so I had 2 of the commas. I'm gonna go to 2 of the dots. And if you're just learning, you can pick just the dots and, just the dots and do all the same until you get more used to it. But I think that this type of project is good for experimenting, you know, so you can learn more about how the paint handles. Okay, one more dot. Okay, Okay, so this is the top of his head, obviously. Once again, the size of the dots don't even really matter. Some could be bigger and littler. It just gives them a little bit of a goofier look to your monsters. Okay, that was 2 rows. I'll do a comma again on the last 2 rows. Keep grabbing up a little more white paint. This guy's going to be looking off this way. So you'll notice I did keep the eyes all to the top of the heads a little bit. You want to leave room for a mouth. So now we will open the black. I rinsed off my brush pretty good. For this, you can probably work right out of the cup. You don't even need to take it out. I think the black is thin enough for the small dots you're going to do. So this is going to be his little pupils. So now you can put them on the inside, make them look cross-eyed. Put them in the center, make them look straight forward. So we're just taking that cup and placing dots wherever they may fall. See how they don't have to be perfect? It gives your monsters character. Once again, if you're afraid of smearing your white spots as you go, you can wait for each section to dry before you go to the next one, and then you won't have any problems. But here, he's going to be looking at the same thing. And this guy's looking over there. This guy will look straight up. So depending on where you put the black dots, kind of makes it which way the monsters are looking, kind of gives it more character if you change it up some. Once again, not a big deal. So this I'm just kind of pushing down on the brush. You can dab like a little to get what size you want, what shape you want. See how I push down harder, I'll get bigger round spots, touch it lighter, and you get small little pupils. Like here, I didn't quite get enough to make them look, I don't know. So you can always touch it and add some more. Okay. And this is why each sheet of paper you paint is definitely an original. And here's where you may want to let your black dots dry before you try the mouths. Rinse your brush. Always keep your tools in the water when you're not using them, or the paint will dry up on your utensils. Okay, so now we get to do the mouths. I'm going to show you on the little test piece of paper that you can practice with the mouths. You can make them straight up smiles just by taking a nice curve with your hand. You can give them little zigzags up and down. You can do surprised little mouths, frowns, just any old way your brush goes. You can just practice here. So once you put these on their faces, it gives them character. So practice a little on your paper. Decide whether you want to make them happy, angry, or a combination of anything. So I'm going to do a combination and just let them squiggle out. Okay. Here, once again, the amount of pressure you put on your brush will determine whether the line is thin or thicker as you go, so you can go up and down, kind of. See how just changing the brush, how hard I'm pressing down gives you a different look. Okay. So if you need a little more practice on the paper, go for it. But you, once again, I don't think you can go wrong with these little monsters. And I'm doing it upside down. You'll be obviously facing the other way. Go. Okay, so we keep just adding our little mouths as we go across the page. This guy's sad. Another way to do it is to work half of the sheet this way to you, and then turn the paper around and do the other half that way if it's easier for you to reach or not reach. Have the ones you're working on closer to you. So they're starting to get a little character. Remember to roll your brush to keep the paint coming off. As you move it, you just twist it a little with your fingers. For video's sake, I'll just do these ones down here. After all, it is just fun wrapping paper, so a useful item while you learn to paint. Okay, so now I'm going to take a quick moment and look over the pattern to see if I missed any, like this guy. And I'm gonna go back and, so I'm just gonna kind of scan over each line, make sure I got all of them. Keep your water or your paintbrush in the water and your lids on your paint. So now we're down to just the arms and the legs. Shake up your squeeze bottle. This is something you definitely want to practice on your paper. You'll use your scissors to cut the tip off. Take off only a little bit at a time, okay? You can see it come out. It's better to keep it tiny, a tiny hole, than a big hole that comes out too fast. Okay? So on here, you're just gonna practice placing your tip down on the paper and then just dragging it out however you want, and then give him some fingers any which way you want. So that'll be the arm attached to the purple there. You do the same on the other side. He can have his arms up in the air or down. If you get any of the bubbles, you can just add a little more paint by squeezing ever so gently. Okay, so here we go. So I'm gonna start over here, put my squeeze bottle down, start squeezing a little bit, just kind of drag and give him some fingers. Go to the other side. And this is where you just kind of go into where the yellow is. You'll see it doesn't really matter as we add the legs. This guy's arms are gonna go down because I have lots of yellow space here. Just drag it off. Just using the tip to kind of drag the paint where I want it. So how hard you squeeze the squeeze bottle will determine obviously how much paint comes out. So this is also a time, as we put the legs on and the arms on, if you did drip any of the black like I did here, I'll be using this to kind of cover that up. And I'm gonna make his arms go straight out because I have space here, leaving room for his legs too. But you can see how you can just wiggle it around, make them as straight or as wiggly as you want. Utilizing whatever space around. So here I might go down. I'm barely squeezing the squeeze bottle. On occasion you'll get it to come, it'll come out faster than you want. You just add it, keep kind of going over it. Give him thicker arms. And then you might want to match the other guy, other arm up. See how I just kind of corrected that? Use your paper towel or fingers, whatever, to keep your tip clean. If you wait for the purple to dry already, then you don't get the purple in the tip of your bottle. And we just have fun with it. It gets harder when you're reaching like this to control it, so that's why you might want to turn the paper around. You know, do this half and then turn the paper around and do the other half. But for these purposes, we're just going to go with it. And by the time you do your second sheet of paper, it'll be a little more fun, less to figure out with how much pressure to put on the squeeze bottle, etc. Fingers can be as long or as thin or as thick. Just make whatever comes out work. Kind of fill that in, make it look like it's attached to his body. Wipe your tip off every so often. The direction I'm holding the squeeze bottle also matters. You want to let the paint come out. Don't try to work it this way into the paint. So I'm kind of pulling away from the opening of the squeeze bottle, for the most part. Every now and then, this is what I mean by pushing in. That gives you less control. And you just keep working till you go all the way across the paper and get all of your monsters. After this, we'll put some legs on them. And then I'll show you how to do the acrylic dipped bows. Most of my arms are going up. You can make them sideways, doesn't matter. Sometimes if I get a big glob, like, a thicker amount of paint here, that's where I will use that to determine how many fingers. Give them a few more fingers, just spread that paint out, and then do the same on the other side. Just a silly, fun thing to do. So you can see it doesn't matter how long or how short you make the arms, you just have fun with it. So down here I'm using these bottom guys to bring a little more interest or pattern up into the spot where there isn't much to break up the yellow. Oops, I missed an arm. See, just come back and wipe off my tip again. See how I globbed a bunch out? Well, I'm just going to drag the tip and put less pressure. And then just give him the same thickness arm and it looks great. Just don't overthink it. So these guys all have an arm. Okay, so I'm going to scan again and make sure each little body has 2 arms. Oh, this one here. It's not the end of the world if one only has 1 arm. Okay, I see I missed a few here. This little guy needs something. Okay. All right, so they all have arms. Now we do the legs. So for a second there, the squeeze bottle wasn't working. It wasn't coming out easy, so I just squeezed it extra hard. You may need to rinse the tip, take it off and rinse it out if you can't get it to work after that, but now you can see it's working. Okay, so now we're gonna do some funny legs. The legs will be done very same idea, pull away from the paint and then just give them a little loop at the end. Make them squiggly, loop. You can have these feet aiming inwards, outwards, whatever you want. Just have fun with it. You know, just a simple change in direction gives them a different funny look. So those will be the legs. And now we'll just move through the pattern. This one I'm gonna make go off the page because he's just a tall guy. You can give him little feet, or if you have a lot of extra space, big feet facing upwards, anything, just have fun. They can both be facing one direction, inwards. Big long feet. Here's one up here I forgot. So once again, I'm just using this to kind of fill in this yellow space so it breaks up where you don't just have one glob of white space. Okay, so now I keep moving down my pattern. When you get a bubble, you just touch the tip till it pops. We're gonna give him some knees. That's how we solve that. If you need to, you can shake the paint down to get the air to come up to the top of the squeeze bottle so you don't keep getting those bubbles. See how I'm placing his feet in between where the arms have already gone. So you just kind of run it along and add it where it fits. This guy's got real big feet. Once again here, I'm going to use that to cover up my mistake of drips. I'm just going towards where there's lots of yellow space. How hard you squeeze the squeeze bottle determines how thick your line is. Go straight out, back in. Oh, a little triangle foot. So here we'll give him a knee. You just can't really go wrong. Which is what makes it fun and hopefully more relaxing. And once again, you just keep moving across till you finish the page. See how one looks a little thicker? You can always come to the nice thick spot and then drag it back and add a little wider. Okay, this guy's gonna have some knees going that way. So I'm feeling a little bit of where the paint wasn't coming out. Don't start squeezing so hard if you're over the paper. Take it back to your sample, your practice paper. If I don't like the way that's sticking out, you just kind of drag it through. And then make him a little thicker if you need to, if you're that worried about it. Okay. Another thing to remember is when I'm not letting go of the pressure on the squeeze bottle as I move from monster to monster, and I'm shaking it down to let the air come up here, otherwise you've got the air kind of making those bubbles. So every so often it doesn't hurt to shake it down. But here I'm not letting the pressure up when I move from, say, this monster. I've still got the same amount of pressure on the squeeze bottle. I'm not letting up on the pressure. That's what gives you the air bubbles. If you get any of those little splashy things. See, when I do let up on the pressure, that's when it does those little splashes. All right, give this guy some. This little guy. Okay. Looks like he wants a knee too. So I'll come back and give him knobby knees. So your first piece of paper will take longer and you'll be practicing. By the time you do the second one, you should become more comfortable. So this guy's only going to get short legs. You can see how even my mistake by getting this one, dropping my sponge in the beginning, you can make it part of the pattern. Okay, once again, I'll check and make sure I got all the legs on all of my little creatures. And make sure I put the cap back on my squeeze bottle. So, there you go. Everyone is an original piece. Okay, so now we are going to learn how to make the bows for the acrylic dipped bows that come in your package. So we're only going to make the large one. Use the same process for the small one. So you can do them at your leisure. So we'll take the large roll of paper, take the rubber band off, get rid of that. The package comes with the large one and the small one and 2 pieces of wire. That's what will hold the flower or the bow together. So basically unroll your tissue paper and try to line it up the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, I'm gonna lay it out this way for you guys to see. So now all we do is fan fold. You get all of the sheets started. Okay, so then I'm taking it like this and I'm gonna fold it over, what is that, Jim, about an inch? Inch and a half?
A little bit more.
A little more than an inch, okay. So the smaller bow, you might put a little smaller of a fold. So once you crease it like this and you've got your first fold, then you just pick it up and fan fold it. So you want to make sure this edge lines up with the other edge and then crease it. Keep doing that until you get to the end. Keep doing this until you get to the end. You don't have to crease it hard, just keep it. So kind of lining that up, making sure you're not getting wider with each one. Once again, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you do, but you're trying to keep these kind of the edges lined up. Kind of doing that to keep it so it folds easy and nice. Still have paint all over my fingers. Oops, don't let it get away from you. Keep pinching it tight. Okay, so now we're on the last one. This is where you'll want to kind of crease it really nice. So you can see it kind of went off like on a edge. That won't matter. We can use our scissors and trim them up. Okay, so now you want to hold these loose ends in on both sides. I'm going to use my wrist to hold that there and open my wire. So one is shorter than the other. For the big bow, you want the longer piece of wire, okay? Now you just take your wire, make sure you pick up all the pieces. Lay it down on top where the wire is approximately in the middle, and then pull it down just a little bit. And we are gonna go, actually, yeah. Then we put pressure in the center, just fold your wire over. Like this, and pick this one up and get it started close to the other one here next to the tissue paper, and then hold the wire and twist. You want to twist till it gets pretty tight up against the edge of the paper. So at this point you can, if it's crooked or not centered, you can kind of slowly wiggle it. Get it as close to center as you can. So that's approximately center. Okay, so then you just keep twisting that. holding it in between your fingers like this and twisting the bow and pulling your fingers down. Just twist it until you get it all twisted up together. The wire will be what you ultimately glue or tape to the package when you're decorating your package. So that's close enough. I'm gonna fold that other end up. And be careful because it's pokey. Just kind of wrap that around so it's out of the way. You can put a piece of tape around the end if you don't, if you don't want to get poked, because these little edges can be pokey. All right, so after you're at this point, you can take it and hold it by the, see, you poked me a little bit. So now, all you want to do is start taking each sheet. You want to make sure you only get one, and slowly, gently just tug on it all the way around, pulling this sheet towards the center. You don't have to worry about how it looks right now, but you want to at least give it a good tug here to get it started. And you just keep working around the entire bow this way. So now I'm pulling from the other side, kind of meeting. And you'll see how it won't really matter. Just don't pull it too hard. You got to be a little tender with it. See how I'm kind of just wiggling it and it's coming forward. Once again, just go around until you get all of the sheets done in the same direction. Starts feeling a little harder to pull up, and that's okay, because you will run out of sheets, and that will become the bottom of your bow. So I recommend doing all of your paper pieces first, your gift wrap, because I always use the excess amount of paint, whatever's left over, after you've done your 2 sheets or 3 sheets, 2 sheets. After you've done those, whatever paint you have left is what you can use to dip your bows or paint your bows with. So you can see it's getting shorter and shorter. That's okay. That's good. Oh, even if you tear it, it's okay. Just kind of tuck it back in. It will not show by the time you get the acrylic on the edges. Okay, so you just keep going around until you're finished. Okay, so after you have all of them pulled out, you've got a flat bottom like that. You can just kind of grab at them, pull them, fluff them up a little. If you see anything bent over, I just kind of do this. You can also take a look at it from the side view. If you see anything sticking up crazy, that's where your little scissors come in handy. And feel free to just trim off a little piece here and there, whatever you like, just so you get a nice fluffy bow. Okay, so now that you have done all of your pieces of paper and you have leftover purple and blue paint, white paint, whatever you have left over you can use. Today I'm just going to show you with the purple and the blue just how you can apply the paint to your bows so they will match. But basically you're going to pour out any excess. There it is. So just so you can use up all your paint, pour out whatever excess you have in a pile. And you can use this to scrape it out or get as much out as you can. Utilize all your paint. So I'm just going to pour it on that palette. By now your other paint should be dry and you can use it right over the other dried up paint. And anything left over in your squeeze bottle after all your legs and arms are done, squeeze out on your palette. Basically grab your bow, hold it by the wire underneath, and just start dipping. There's no right or wrong. Right now I'm just going to put a nice purple edge around the bottom. I'm kind of making sure I get this bottom layer because that helps hold your bow in place over, you know, after it dries. So I'm just dipping it in the paint and twisting it around. You can take a look at it and just see if it's remotely even. Doesn't have to be. So now I'm going to take this even and lift this up a little bit and just start dipping onto the blue paint wherever it goes. Once again, you can't go wrong, which is what makes it fun. So I got a nice, a little blue there. You can take this paper and actually wipe it on, you know, like this. And I'll dip it back into the purple in the middle. Get a little purple. Once again, you may want to use your stick to accumulate your paint. Now I'm going to kind of rub it in there. And just kind of roll it around. See, I see a kind of plain spot, so I'll just put it in there and kind of scrape up any of the paint. Once again, everyone is unique. If you did have leftover black and white, you could add that on your palette and just dip a few spots in each color. Basically, you want to let it dry on your newspaper. And you'll do the same for the small bow. Fan fold, tie it with your wire, and have fun. I do recommend doing the large and the small together. That way you use all your paint on your palette. There we go.